The Magic School Bus, Chapter Book. Butterfly Battle. Written by Nancy White. Illustrations by Hope Gangloft. Introductions. Hi, my name is Phoebe. I am one of the kids in Ms. Frizzle's class. Maybe you've heard of Ms. Frizzle. Sometimes we just call her the Frizz. She is a terrific teacher, but a little strange. In fact, things can get really strange in her class. Science is one of Ms. Frizzle's favorite subjects, and she knows everything about it. We go on lots of field trips in the magic school business. Believe me, it's not called magic for nothing. Once we get on board, anything can happen. Ms. Frizzle likes to surprise us, but we can usually tell when she is planning a special field trip. We just look at what she's wearing. One day, the Frizz came into class wearing a dress that had butterfly designs all over it. She was also wearing butterfly earrings, butterfly shoes, and a necklace that looked like a butterfly. With all those butterfly wings, the Frizz looked like she might take off any minute. Little did we know that we were all about to take off. You'll never guess what happened that day, but one thing's for sure, the field trips in my old school weren't anything like this one. Chapter 1. Our classroom was absolutely quiet. Everyone was just staring straight ahead and not saying a word. This is not how it is most of the time in Ms. Frizzle's room. We were supposed to be working on a skit for a unit on butterflies, but no one had any ideas. So we just sat there. It was awful. Just when we thought we couldn't stand the silence anymore, Ms. Frizzle flitted into the room wearing her butterfly outfit. "My, but it's quiet in here," she commented. "I expected to find a flutter of activity." "We don't have any ideas for our butterfly skit," said Wanda. From the desk of Ms. Frizzle. "Who put the butter in butterfly? Butterflies actually have nothing to do with butter. And butterflies are not flies. But they are insects. Like other insects, they have 3 body sections: a head and front, a middle part called the thorax, and a back part called the abdomen. 6 legs. A hard outer coating called an exoskeleton. Most insects also have 2 feelers, or antennae, on their heads and either 2 or 4 wings. A butterfly has 2 antennae and 4 wings. And the more we try, the more ideas we don't get, added Tim. "I have something here that might inspire you," said Ms. Frizzle, showing us the necklace she was wearing. Hanging on a chain was a locket shaped like a butterfly, and it had the most beautiful bright and shimmery colors on its wings. This locket, Ms. Frizzle told us, belonged to my great-great-grandmother Matilda. She was called Magic Matilda. "How come they called her that?" asked Wanda. "Could she do magic tricks?" "Great-great-grandmother Matilda was a world-famous magician," Ms. Frizzle answered proudly. "Did Magic Matilda's locket get those beautiful colors by magic?" asked Ralphie. "No, it didn't," answered Ms. Frizzle. "As a matter of fact, this locket is made of real butterflies' wings." "So the locket isn't magical?" asked Arnold hopefully. Arnold, if you can believe it, is a kid who thinks a good day is when nothing special happens. His idea of fun is a couple of tests and a nice big homework assignment, not a magic locket. "I don't know, Arnold," said Ms. Frizzle. "But Magic Matilda always said the locket was magical." "I knew it," said Arnold, sounding disappointed. "Great," said Carlos. "Maybe it can give us an idea for our skit. Can we ask it to help us?" "I don't think that's the kind of magic the locket has, Carlos," said Ms. Frizzle. "What kind of magic does it have?" asked Tim. "That's the wonderful mystery," said Ms. Frizzle. "No one knows. There's a legend in my family that whoever can open the locket will possess a secret magic charm, but so far no one has been able to do it." She fiddled with the clasp on the locket as she spoke, but it didn't open. "Excellent," said Arnold. And with a little luck, no one ever will. I wasn't sure I believed that the locket could really be magical, but then, strange things do happen in Miss Frizzle's class. I decided to wait and see. Time to get back to our skit, class, said Miss Frizzle, still inspecting her locket. What skit? Said Wanda. We don't even have an idea for a skit. We're not even close to having an idea, said Ralphie. Can't you help us, Miss Frizzle? Pleaded Keisha. We're stuck. Miss Frizzle looked thoughtful. Then she grinned and said, well, I just might be able to help you out. What this class needs is a good field trip. Here we go again, Arnold groaned. Now we're all going to shrink down to a tiny little size and turn into butterflies. Then we'll get chased by some huge, horrible birds, or someone will catch us in a net and sell us to a natural history museum. Everyone knows that Miss Frizzle believes in learning by doing. Well, you've got one thing right, Arnold, said Miss Frizzle. The museum has a famous butterfly collection, and I think we should go there and see it. As long as we're going to see it and not be it, said Arnold. He looked like he was feeling a little better, but I couldn't help noticing that the frizz had that look in her eye. The outfit, the locket, and most of all the look, they all gave me the feeling that we weren't going to end up in a nice, quiet museum that day. I could tell the frizz had something much more exciting up her sleeve, or under her wing. Then Miss Frizzle said those three little words that all her students know so well, to the bus. Chapter 2. We all piled on the bus and got in our seats. Just behind me, I heard Keisha whisper to Carlos, I don't see how looking at butterflies in a museum is going to help us with our skit. Me, neither, said Carlos. I wish we could see live butterflies instead. I turned around and said I thought so, too. In my old school, we saw plenty of stuff in museums, but since I've been in Miss Frizzle's class, I've gotten used to a little more excitement. We didn't think anyone was listening, but then we noticed Liz, our class lizard, perched on the back of Keisha's seat. She looked like she agreed with us. Later, I found out that lizards eat butterflies, so Liz might have had her own reasons for what she did next. She took a flying leap onto the dashboard of the bus and landed on a lever that started to flash. Then the whole bus lifted off the ground. We were flying. The bus is turning into a giant butterfly, shouted Tim. I couldn't believe it. Our bus had sprouted beautiful orange and black wings, two on each side. They were flapping up and down slowly and gracefully. What's happening, Miss Frizzle? I asked. I was a little scared, but excited, too. It seems that we've had a change in plans, class, the Frizz answered cheerfully. I knew those plans were too good to be true, muttered Arnold. According to my research, said DA, the bus is a monarch butterfly. That means we're going south because monarchs travel to warmer climates in the fall. DA was right, as usual. She knows lots of facts because she loves doing research. DA's real name is Dorothy Ann, but we hardly ever call her that. The Incredible Journey by DA. Some kinds of butterflies migrate or travel very long distances. Painted lady butterflies migrate from Africa all the way to Calais. What most people don't realize is that no one butterfly makes the whole rendezvous that long. They stop and lay eggs along the way, so new butterflies can join the flock for the rest of the trip. Looking down, we could see the blue ocean, a beach, and then palm trees. We were over Florida. Soon the butterfly bus landed right in front of a sign that read Butterfly Land. Behind the sign was a huge building. Well, it wasn't a building exactly. It was more like a giant tent with netting instead of solid walls or a roof. Through the netting, we could see beautiful gardens filled with brightly colored flowers. A tour guide came running over to us. Welcome, class. My name is Peter. I think you'll enjoy Butterfly Land just like all the other classes that come here. Peter didn't know yet that we weren't just like other classes. But he was about to find out. Open the door, and let's explore, said Ms. Frizzle. We all climbed out of the bus. I couldn't wait to get a look at some live butterflies. Before we went in, Ms. Frizzle told us she had to wait for us outside. We don't want any of the butterflies to turn into lizard lunches, she said. Liz didn't mind. She eats bugs, so she thinks the whole outdoors is her snack bar. Inside, Butterfly Land was amazing. Butterflies of all sizes and colors were flying around the trees and flowers. The first place Peter took us was the butterfly nursery. First, he showed us a plant with tiny white butterfly eggs stuck right on the leaves. They were so small, they looked like white specks. A female butterfly lays her eggs on a leaf, Peter told us. She uses a sticky liquid from her body to make sure they don't fall off. Next, Peter showed us baby caterpillars that had just hatched. They were tiny and had white, black, and yellow stripes. Someday, each caterpillar will become a butterfly, said Peter. 2 kids, from Peter. It's just a stage. Butterflies and many other insects go through 4 stages of life. Here's what each stage is called. 1. Egg laid by a female butterfly on a leaf. 2. Larvae, the caterpillars that hatch from the eggs. 3. Pupa, when the caterpillar grows a hard shell, sometimes called a aerosolis. 4. Butterfly, the adult stage. When an insect goes through all 4 stages, it's called going through complete metamorphosis. Metamorphosis is pronounced like this, metamorphosis. H is a Greek word that means a change of shape. You can tell what kind of butterfly a caterpillar will become by the way it looks. What kind of butterfly will these caterpillars turn into? Asked Wanda. These will be monarch butterflies, said Peter. Just like our bus, shouted Tim. Is that how our bus looked when it was a baby? Wondered Keisha. Peter looked confused. Ms. Frizzle just kept smiling. Those children have such imaginations, she said. Peter gave us a strange look, but then he went on with his talk. The first thing a newborn caterpillar does, he said, is to start eating. First it eats the shell of its own egg. Then it starts eating the leaf where it hatched. But most caterpillars will eat only a few kinds of leaves, so the butterfly has to lay her eggs on the right kind of plant. Monarchs lay their eggs only on milkweed plants. According to my research, milkweed is poisonous to many animals, said Da, and that makes the monarch caterpillar poisonous, too. Right you are, said Peter, looking impressed and a little surprised. I guess he'd never met a kid like Da before. And it tastes terrible, he continued. All this is good for a caterpillar because birds and other animals won't eat it. They don't like eating monarch butterflies either. I was wondering how the animals know that monarchs taste bad. After all, it's not like they can tell one another. I ate one of those monarchs yesterday and it made me really sick. Then Peter explained, the monarch caterpillar's colors black and orange are warning colors in nature. They tell other animals to stay away. Those warning colors are this caterpillar's defense. What is that thing hanging from that twig over there? Asked Wanda. That's a chrysalis, Peter answered. That's the form a caterpillar takes while it's getting ready to be a butterfly. 2 kids, from Peter. From caterpillar to chrysalis. A caterpillar grows quickly, but its skin doesn't grow at all. When the caterpillar gets too big for its skin, the skin comes off, and a new skin appears underneath. This is called molting, and it happens a few times as a caterpillar grows bigger and, pupil case, bigger. When a caterpillar sheds its skin for the last time, there is a hard shell underneath. The caterpillar has then changed into a pupa. Chrysalis is a special name for a butterfly's pupa. The chrysalis looked like it was made out of gold. Peter told us it would become a black and white butterfly called a tree nymph. The monarch chrysalis was about an inch, 2.5 m, long. It was light green with shiny gold dots and a gold stripe around the top. How do those wormy-looking little caterpillars get to look like beautiful gold earrings? I asked Peter. Those pupas aren't moving at all, said Arnold. Are you sure they're not dead? They may not be moving on the outside, said Peter, but inside, a lot is going on. A butterfly will come out of each of these shells. What kind of butterfly will that big brown caterpillar be? Asked Da, the one that looks like a dead leaf. You can figure that out for yourself, said Peter. I'm going to give each of you a field guide so you can look up pictures of the caterpillars and butterflies and find out what kind they are. Da used her field guide right away to look for a picture of the big brown caterpillar. It will turn into an owl butterfly, she said. Owl butterflies come from the rainforests of South and Central America. Peter told us a lot more facts about butterflies. We found out that there were butterflies back in the age of the dinosaurs. We learned that the viceroy and the queen butterflies look almost exactly like the monarch but are not poisonous. Just looking like the monarch makes other animals leave them alone. And we learned the difference between a butterfly and a moth. When Peter started talking about butterflies' wings, he mentioned that some people make jewelry out of them. Keisha called out, just like Magic Matilda's locket. We had almost forgotten about that. We were about to be reminded. Field Guide to Butterflies, Wing Scales. A butterfly's wing is covered with tiny scales. They are something like the scales on a fish's body, but much smaller and more delicate. The scales give butterflies their beautiful colors and also help them tell one another apart. If you look at a butterfly's wing scales through a microscope, they look like this. Different types of butterflies have differently shaped scales. Chapter 3. Ms. Frizzle lifted up her locket to show it to Peter. It's made from the wings of a butterfly, she said, laughing at her own mistake. We all laughed, too. At that moment, she must have accidentally pressed a secret catch or something, because the locket opened. We froze, waiting to see what would happen. At first, nothing did. I knew that locket wasn't really magic, said Ralphie. He walked away to look at a beautiful shiny butterfly called a blue morpho. Isn't this interesting, class? Said Ms. Frizzle. She thinks everything is interesting. There's some pink powder inside the locket. Now we gathered around and held our breath with excitement. Arnold was standing right next to the frizz. He looked like he was about to explode, and when he couldn't hold his breath any longer, he breathed out really hard. When he did that, he blew the pink powder out of the locket and all over us. Some of it even got on Ms. Frizzle. Luckily, none got on Peter, who had turned to look at the blue morpho. When Peter turned around again, all he saw was our field guides in a pile on the ground and Ms. Frizzle's locket lying on top. He kept looking around and saying to himself, "Where did they go? Where did they go?" But we hadn't gone anywhere. We had turned into butterflies. Isn't this wonderful, class? Said Butterfly Frizz. Ms. Frizzle always gets very excited when we turn into something. Now our field trip is really taking off. At first, I was afraid I wouldn't know how to fly, but when I saw all the other kid butterflies, even Arnold, flying around from flower to flower, I decided to join in the fun. And there was a lot of it. Just imagine flitting around a garden all day and drinking sweet, delicious nectar from flowers whenever you get hungry. Have a sip. By Phoebe. A butterfly's mouth is really amazing. It has a long skinny, curled-up tube in the middle called a proboscis. TS pronounced, Pruckbius sucks. A proboscis is really two tubes that work like straws. The butterfly uncurls its proboscis and uses it to drink nectar out of flowers. Each of us was a different kind of butterfly. That probably wouldn't happen in nature because the same kinds of butterflies usually stay together around the same kinds of plants. But here in butterfly land, all kinds of butterflies could hang out together. From our tour with Peter, I knew that Keisha was a blue morpho and Arnold was an owl butterfly. But I didn't know what the other kids were. I didn't even know what I was. So I asked the frizz. The Owl Butterfly, It's Giving You the Eye, by Arnold. The owl butterfly has spots on the undersides of its rear wings. The spots look like big owl eyes. Some other butterflies have eye spots, also. When other animals see the eye spots, they are fooled into thinking they're the eyes of a much bigger animal, and they get scared. So eye spots are a kind of butterfly owl defense. She looked around and said, "Well, let's see. If I remember my butterflies correctly, Carlos is a tiger swallowtail, Wanda is a painted lady, Tim is a red admiral, Da is a zebra longwing, and you, Phoebe, are a monarch. What are you, Ms. Frizzle?" I asked. "Good question, Phoebe," she said. "Tell me what I look like." "Well, your wings are mostly brownish-orange with a black stripe and little white dots around the edge," I told her. "You look sort of like a monarch, but not as brightly colored." "It sounds like I'm a queen butterfly, Phoebe," she said. Then she flew away. Field Guide to Butterflies, Butterfly Identification, look me up sometime. Blue morpho, tropical rainforests, black around edges of wings, bright blue in the middle. Monarch, North America, mostly orange, with black and white spots. Owl, tropical rainforests, mostly brown, with purple in the middle of its eye spots. Painted lady, North America, orange, black, and white. Queen, North America, looks like monarch, but browner. Red admiral, North America, mostly black, with bright red and white stripes. Tiger swallowtail, North America, bright yellow and black. Zebra longwing, North America. Black with bright yellow stripes. I started to follow Ms. Frizzle, but all of a sudden, something seemed wrong. When I tried to remember what kind of butterfly each kid was, I only counted 7 kinds. And there should have been 8 of us. Someone was missing. "Ralphie! Ralphie! Where are you, Ralphie?" I yelled. But no one answered. When the other kids heard me, they all started calling Ralphie's name, too, and so did Ms. Frizzle. But no Ralphie. "Where could he be?" asked Tim. "Hey, I have an idea," said Wanda. "Remember when Arnold blew the pink powder out of Magic Matilda's locket?" "You don't have to rub it in," said Arnold. "Well, you did, Arnold," said Wanda. Then she went on. "Ralphie wasn't with the group. He was over with Peter looking at the blue morpho." "So you mean Ralphie didn't get any pink powder on him?" asked Carlos. "But then he'd still be a regular kid, and we'd be able to see him." "Or maybe he just got a little on him," said Keisha. "Not enough to turn him into a butterfly, but just enough to turn him into a caterpillar," we all yelled out together. "I love it when those butterfly brains go to work," said Ms. Frizzle. "Come on, class. Let's see if we can find Ralphie on one of these leaves." There were so many plants in butterfly land, I wondered how we would ever find Ralphie. Then I heard Tim shouting, "There he is. That's him." "How can you tell it's really Ralphie?" asked Carlos. "A caterpillar wearing a red baseball cap?" said Tim. "Who else could it be?" I spotted Ralphie. He was a prickly, spiny-looking black caterpillar with lots of legs. He had rows of orange spots along his back and sides. He had blue dots, too. And he was wearing his red baseball cap. Creeping Caterpillars by Ralphie. Caterpillars look like worms, but they're not. A caterpillar is the larva stage of a butterfly. A caterpillar's head has two short feelers. Its mouth is different from a butterfly's because it's made for chewing leaves, not sipping nectar. A caterpillar's body has 6 front legs. They will be the butterfly's legs. It also has as many as low legs and back. Those are called prolegs, and they disappear when the caterpillar molts for the last time. A caterpillar has tiny holes in the sides of its body. They're for breathing. They're called spiracles. Butterflies and other insects get air through spiracles, too. Ralphie was on the green leaf of a plant with yellow flowers. The leaf was near the ground, near the entrance to Butterfly Land. But before we could say anything, Ralphie, red baseball cap and all, crawled through an opening under the door and was gone. Chapter 4. We have to find Ralphie. We just have to, said Da. According to my research, it's very dangerous for him out there. Most caterpillars don't even live long enough to become butterflies. Then she started listing all the animals that eat caterpillars. Birds, moles, mice, ants, toads, wasps, spiders. Okay, we get the idea, Da, said Tim. There are lots of predators out there that might think Ralphie is a tasty snack. We have to figure out how to find him before you know what. I knew Da and Tim were right. We had to get Ralphie back to Butterfly Land, where he would be safe. The first thing we have to figure out, said Wanda, is how to get out of Butterfly Land. We're too big to fit under the door the way Ralphie did. I looked outside, wondering how to get out there. That's when I spotted Liz. Hey, you guys, I called to the other kids. Maybe Liz can help us get out. She did get us into this mess in the first place, said Arnold, remembering how Liz had made the bus turn into a butterfly. I didn't want to say anything, but Arnold sort of blew it, too. Just saying Liz's name got her attention. Get us out of here, Liz, Carlos called to her. Just then, a whole class of kids that had been lined up outside came in through the entrance door. After the last kid was inside, Liz held the door open just long enough for us to fly out without anyone noticing. Now we could start looking for a caterpillar wearing a red baseball cap. But first, we needed to come up with a plan. We settled on a big rock that was warm from the sun to figure things out. This feels so good, said Wanda. I feel like I'm getting more energy, said Tim. I was feeling kind of tired before. A Place in the Sun by Wanda. Butterflies can't fly unless their body temperature is very warm, like the temperature on a nice summer day. Since butterflies are cold-blooded, their body temperature goes down. When the temperature outside goes down, they bask in the sun to get their body temperatures up again. Lizards are cold-blooded, too. They bask in the sun for the same reason. Now I could see why Liz's favorite place to sit was on a rock in the sun. After we sunbathed, we folded our wings straight up over our bodies. Anyone walking by would hardly have noticed us there, because most butterflies' wings are not brightly colored on the bottom, only on the top. And it's the bottom part that shows when their wings are folded together. Most of us blended right in with the rock. Oh, birds, said Tim. We could hear them twittering in the bushes nearby. Don't they eat butterflies? We had all been so worried about what could happen to a caterpillar outside the safety of Butterfly Land, we had forgotten one important thing. Lots of predators like butterflies, too. We had more than birds to worry about. Bats, wasps, and, of course, lizards like to eat butterflies. When we were human kids, we were on top of the food chain. Now we were a lot closer to the bottom, which was pretty scary. You can take it from someone who's been there. The food chain is no diamond necklace by Arnold. Plants get eaten, but they don't eat, so they're at the bottom of the food chain. The animals that are lowest on the food chain eat mainly plants, but they get eaten by lots of other animals. It's a food-eat-food world out there, but the higher you are on the food chain, the less likely you are to get eaten. Big meat eaters like lions and wolves are up pretty high. Humans are at the top. Butterflies are a lot further down. Since only some of the kids had wings that blended into the background, Miss Frizzle had them surround the ones who still stood out like me. Fortunately, the birds didn't bother us. Miss Frizzle, or you could say Madam Butterfly, told us why. You're camouflaged. Camouflage is when an animal blends in with its background so predators don't notice it. Life is splendid when you're blended. Then Arnold had a good idea. Peter said that most caterpillars only like to eat a few special kinds of leaves. The leaf Ralphie was on was part of a plant with yellow flowers. If we can find plants like that, maybe we can find Ralphie. Rightly reasoned, Arnold, said Butterfly Frizz. And for your information, the name of that plant is toadflax. So we flew off to look for toadflax plants, and soon we found some. Ralphie wasn't there, but someone else was. On a tree above us was a whole flock of birds. This time our wings were spread out, so we weren't camouflaged. Before I could say, butterflies, flutter by, the birds were swooping down on us. I couldn't figure out why they weren't chasing Miss Frizzle or me, and then I remembered I was a monarch, the kind of butterfly birds don't like to eat. And the Frizz was a queen, one of the butterflies that looks like a monarch. But Arnold was in big trouble. "Hey, Arnold, look out!" I yelled. A really big bird was coming right at Arnold. Its huge wings were flapping and its pointed beak was wide open. "Help!" screamed Arnold. "Somebody do something." But we couldn't do anything to save him. The big bird was getting closer and closer. I covered my eyes so I wouldn't see Arnold get turned into bird food. My heart was pounding when I heard Keisha yell out, "Flash your eye spots." I peeked through my fingers just in time to see Arnold flip up his wings and show his eye spots. Lucky for him, he was an owl butterfly. Those eye spots on his wings scared the bird away. It must have thought that it was looking into the eyes of a big fierce owl instead of at the wings of a harmless little butterfly. I breathed a sigh of relief. Arnold had just barely escaped. "Well done, Arnold," said Ms. Frizzle. "Now that's what I call learning by doing." Chapter 5. We rested in the sun for a while to get our energy back. Then Tim flew up in the air. "Let's get going," he called down to the rest of us. "Ralphie, get ready to be rescued," chimed in Wanda. "Can't we have a quick lunch first?" said Carlos. "I'm starved." "Yeah, a nice juicy burger sounds good," said Arnold. "With lots of fries." "We butterflies need flower power, Arnold." "The kind of food we eat comes from flowers," said Ms. Frizzle. "I'm dreaming of some milkweed nectar." "Now that you mention it, I'd love some daisies," said Wanda. "And what I wouldn't do for some honeysuckle," Carlos chimed in. "Picky, picky," said Keisha. "That's how we butterflies are," said Dee. "I, myself, will be looking for passion flowers." "I say we look for a garden," said Keisha. "That way we can all find something we want to eat." So off we went in search of a garden. We must have taken a wrong turn somewhere, though, because we were suddenly flying over a city. Everywhere we looked, there were huge buildings in our way. We couldn't see any grass, and there were only a few trees. There wasn't a flower in sight. "Birds aren't the only danger for butterflies," said Ms. Frizzle. "When buildings and parking lots go up, they don't leave much room for fields and gardens. A butterfly can get mighty hungry." "I don't think I can go on any longer," said Carlos after a while. "Me, neither," said Keisha. Her wings were drooping, and she looked like she was fluttering in slow motion. All of us were feeling so weak and hungry, we were about ready to drop. Don't give up, said Miss Frizzle. When the going gets tough, the tough keep flutter-ing. Who said butterflies were tough? Asked Arnold. They're tougher than you think, said the Frizz. Remember what Peter said, butterflies have survived for millions of years. Dinosaurs have been extinct for a long time, but we butterflies are still around. That didn't really make us feel much better, but when she said, think of Ralphie, we knew we couldn't give up. Look down there, shouted Carlos. Flowers! Carlos was right. We were flying over a park. We all landed and headed straight for the kinds of flowers we needed. Somehow, no one had to tell us, we all just knew where to go. But before anyone had a bite, or should I say a sip, Miss Frizzle yelled, Stop! Don't touch another thing in this park. Let's get out of here fast. As tired and hungry as we were, we followed the Frizz. What happened, Miss Frizzle? Why can't we feed from the flowers? Keisha asked. Look at that truck down there, Miss Frizzle answered. See how it's spraying stuff all over the park? That's insecticide. She told us that insecticide is a mixture of chemicals used to kill insects so they won't bother people or destroy plants. And we're insects, right? Asked Tim. Yes, I'm afraid we are, said the Frizz. We're lucky we got out of there alive. Look! Wanda cried, after we'd flown only a little farther. Now that is the biggest garden I've ever seen. Let's go check it out. Maybe we'll get some lunch after all, said Tim. As we got closer to the huge garden Wanda had spotted, we saw a sign that read, City Botanical Garden and Wildlife Preserve. We were really in luck. The garden was big and beautiful, with almost every kind of flower you can imagine. And a special part of the garden was called the Butterfly Garden. The flowers there had been planted especially to attract all kinds of butterflies so that people could enjoy looking at them. What's the sense? By Wanda. Butterflies can see, taste, feel, smell, and hear. See, a butterfly's eye is really lots of little eyes, so a butterfly sees many small pictures of the same thing instead of just one picture, like we do. Caterpillars can hardly see at all. Taste, butterflies taste mainly with their feet. The proboscis can taste, too. Feel, butterflies feel with tiny hairs all over their bodies and on their antennae. Smell, butterflies smell with their antennae, legs, and other parts of their bodies. Hear, some butterflies don't have ears, and some hear sounds through their body. Have a lovely lunch, class, said Miss Frizzle, heading straight for the milkweed. In my old school, we had milk for lunch, not milkweed. But I followed right behind her, anyway. Chapter 6. Soon we felt like ourselves again. Well, not exactly like ourselves. After all, we were still butterflies. But before long, the Ralphie Rescue Squad was off and flying again. It didn't take us long to find Ralphie. There was plenty of toadflax at the botanical garden, and the red baseball cap made Ralphie stand out. None of the other caterpillars was wearing a hat. We settled on the flowers and called out, Hey, Ralphie, it's us. It's about time, said Ralphie. I thought I was one cooked caterpillar. What happened? Said Keisha. As soon as I left Butterfly Land, a bird swooped down and picked me up in its beak. I was just lucky that I got dropped here instead of swallowed. So you might say you got here by airmail, said Carlos. The problem is, said Da, we have to get back to the safety of Butterfly Land before something really terrible happens. But how are we going to get Ralphie back? Asked Tim. He can't fly, and he's too heavy to carry. Besides, if we tried, we might squash him. Miss Frizzle always says that if you think hard enough about a problem, you'll come up with a solution. So I made a suggestion. Let's go over what we've learned about caterpillars and butterflies. Maybe we'll come up with an idea, I said. Everyone say one thing we've learned. Butterflies are insects, said Arnold. We know the difference between a moth and a butterfly, said Wanda. We know that caterpillars turn into butterflies, said Keisha. Bingo, said Carlos. That's it! Ralphie isn't a butterfly yet, but he will be. DA said, according to my research, that could take a very long time. Ralphie could spend weeks as a caterpillar and more weeks as a chrysalis. That's true, said Keisha, but maybe the little bit of pink powder that got on Ralphie could make this all go faster than usual. How many times have you molted so far, Ralphie? Asked Wanda. Right on time, Butterfly Timetable by DA. It can take from 3 days up to a whole winter for a caterpillar to hatch from an egg. The caterpillar stage can last from 1 month up to 3 years. The chrysalis stage can take 1 week, a few months, or even a dozen years. Most butterflies only live from 2 to 4 weeks, but some live longer. 3, if I remember correctly, Ralphie answered. And now that you mention it, my skin feels kind of tight right now. I think I'm ready to molt again. That was good news, because it meant that soon Ralphie would become a chrysalis like the ones Peter showed us at Butterfly Land. And that meant he'd be 1 step closer to being a butterfly. Keisha was right. The pink powder had put Ralphie on fast forward. Just then, things got really strange. Ralphie started looking nervous. He crawled off his leaf and into a pile of dead branches. The next thing we knew, he was hanging upside down from a twig. He had spun a little pad of silk on the twig and was holding on to it with his 2 rear legs. Soon he started wiggling around like crazy. Then his skin split right in 2 just behind his head. Ouch! That must really hurt, said Arnold. But Miss Frizzle told us that it didn't hurt Ralphie at all. He had to get out of that old skin so he could start turning into a butterfly. Sure enough, the skin split some more and started to come off. Finally, it was all dried and bunched up right where Ralphie's abdomen was attached to the twig. The Ralphie that came out of the skin looked completely different, not like his old caterpillar self at all. Now he was a chrysalis. He had no legs or spine, and no orange or blue spots. He was a brownish-grayish color. So silky. By Keisha. All caterpillars can make silk. The caterpillars of many moths spin a silk covering to protect themselves while they're in the chrysalis stage. H is called a cocoon. A caterpillar called the silkworm spins a cocoon out of very special silk. H is used to weave silk cloth. If you have anything made of silk, like a ribbon, a scarf, or a tie, it was really made by caterpillars. Next, Ralphie did something amazing. He twisted and turned until his body was completely free of the old skin. To do that, he had to let go of his silk pad for a second, hold onto the old skin that was still stuck to the twig, and then reattach himself to the twig next to the old skin. Nice gymnastics, Ralphie. Keisha called out. But Ralphie wasn't listening. He just hung there in his brown shell, which was getting hard and dry. Is he? Arnold started to ask. Arnold was afraid Ralphie was dead, but when I reminded him of what we'd learned at Butterfly Land, he felt better. Still, it was weird to see Ralphie just hanging there. After a while, the old skin dried up and fell to the ground. Inside his shell, we knew that Ralphie's body was slowly changing. He was growing wings and everything he would need to be a butterfly. Now there was nothing left for us to do but wait. Chapter 7. According to my research, said DA, the chrysalis will split open near Ralphie's head, and Butterfly Ralphie will come out. I hope it happens soon, said Arnold. The sooner that chrysalis splits, the sooner we can split out of here and back to Butterfly Land. At least they don't allow birds in there. We waited and waited and waited, and then it happened. The chrysalis split open. Tim got so excited, he started describing what was happening as if he were a sports announcer. The opening in the chrysalis is getting bigger. And what do we see? It's round and black. Is it A? Yes, it is. It's a head, folks, a round black head, and it's wearing a red baseball cap. And now Ralphie is pushing with all his strength. Can he do it? Can he get his whole body out of the chrysalis? Come on, Ralphie, we all shouted, cheering him on. Then Tim started announcing again. What's coming out next, folks? It's the antennae. And now for the wings. They're coming out. They're out. And Ralphie is free of the chrysalis. But wait a minute. Tim sounded worried. Look at those wings. They're hanging down all wet and crumpled up. Is something wrong? Let's ask Ms. Frizzle. Tim pretended he was holding a microphone up to the frizz. He was really getting into this announcer thing. Nothing's wrong, said Ms. Frizzle. A butterfly's wings have to be crumpled up like that or they would never fit inside the chrysalis. Soon Ralphie will pump a liquid from his body into the veins in his wings. That will make the wings stretch out straight. Then they will dry out. Thank you, Ms. Frizzle, said Tim, still using his loud fake announcer voice. She's right, folks. Those wings are starting to straighten out right now. And look at this, Ralphie is taking his first steps as a butterfly. Way to go, Ralphie, we all cheered as Butterfly Ralphie took his first steps along the twig he had been hanging from. Soon Ralphie's wings dried out, just like Ms. Frizzle said they would. But the first time he tried to fly, he fell back down in the grass. Don't worry, Ms. Frizzle told us. Ralphie's new at this, but he'll learn. Let him try, and then he'll fly. Ralphie climbed up the stem of a large flower and rested on top of the flower for a few minutes. Are you getting energy from the sun, Ralphie? Wanda asked him. Ralphie was still too weak to answer. Then Tim the announcer took over again. He started moving his wings up and down, folks. And there he goes up, up, up into the wild blue yonder. Fly, Ralphie, fly. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's Ralphie, yelled Carlos. Wow, that was awesome, said Ralphie. Then he asked, Hey, how do I look? What kind of butterfly am I? You're mostly brown, with orange stripes and eye spots on all four of your wings, I told him. You look very nice. I remembered a butterfly just like Ralphie from my field guide. I told him I thought he was a buckeye. Field Guide to Butterflies, the Buckeye Butterfly. The buckeye can be found throughout most of the United States in fields and meadows in the summertime. The buckeye caterpillar feeds on plantain, toadflax, and gerardia. In butterfly form, buckeyes like to bask on bare ground and visit mud puddles. Now that we're all butterflies, said Arnold, let's get back to butterfly land before we're all toast. Is everyone ready? Asked Ms. Frizzle. Let's count down. We all counted down from 10 together. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Footer! We took off into the air, butterfly frizz, and all 8 of us butterfly kids, together at last. But getting back to butterfly land wasn't as easy as we thought it would be. Suddenly, instead of fluttering along, we were swirling and tumbling around in the air, completely out of control. What's going on? Shouted Wanda. I feel like I'm on a roller coaster, yelled Ralphie. But I'm not having any fun. I didn't know what had hit us, but I agreed with Ralphie. This was no fun at all. Then I heard Keisha's voice as she swept past me. It's the wind, she called out. Really strong wind. Her voice trailed off so I couldn't hear her anymore, but I saw her go whirling out of sight. I tried to follow Keisha, but it was no use. A strong gust of wind had swept us up and was tossing us around in the air like dry leaves in a hurricane. I was feeling kind of airsick, I guess, when the wind finally died down. I settled on the branch of a tree and waited for the others. The first to land next to me was the Frizz. That was a scary experience, Miss Frizzly, I said. A learning experience, Phoebe, she corrected me. Now we know how dangerous wind can be for butterflies. I've heard that one hurricane can temporarily wipe out the whole butterfly population on a small tropical island. That's very interesting, I said, still feeling a little sick. I didn't want to hurt the Frizz's feelings, but I was glad that the learning experience was over. The Frizz actually looked like she was enjoying herself. Sometimes she gets a little carried away. This time we all got carried away for real. We waited until the rest of the kids joined us, then we took off again, looking for somewhere we could rest. The wind had carried us off course, so we had to land in a park. It looked safe, little did we know what was in store for us. We'd battled birds, buildings, insecticides, and wind, and now we were about to fight the biggest battle of our butterfly lives. Chapter 8. We settled on some flowers in the park, but we weren't taking any more chances with insecticide, so we didn't feed. As we rested up from our windy adventure, a group of noisy kids came running into the park. At first, we didn't worry about them. After all, they were just kids like us. Only they weren't just like us because we were butterflies. What are they carrying? Wanda asked. Some kind of nets, said Tim. Maybe they're going fishing. I don't see any lake or pond around here, said Keisha. And they don't have fishing poles, said Carlos. I think they're butterfly nets, said Wanda. That's when we noticed that the kids were carrying jars, too. They were the size of mayonnaise jars, just big enough to hold a butterfly. Oh, no, Arnold groaned. Not another adventure. We stayed very still with our wings folded, hoping the kids wouldn't notice us. They had quieted down now and were tiptoeing around the park, hoping to sneak up on some helpless butterflies like us. We could hear some of them whispering to one another. They're so pretty, said one girl. I know. I hope we catch a lot, her friend answered. That freaked Arnold out. He got so scared, he started to fly. Then, WOMP. A net came down over him and trapped him on the grass. I got one, yelled one of the boys. Too bad Arnold's owl butterfly eye spots weren't going to fool a human the way they fooled a bird. The next moment, Arnold was in a jar with a lid full of holes. Let's see if we can find some more, one of the other kids called out. Just when it looked like we'd lose the butterfly battle for sure, a woman in a uniform rode into the park on a horse. She was a park ranger. Hi, kids, she said in a friendly voice. What are you up to with those nets? We're catching butterflies, said one of the girls. Sorry, said the ranger, but that's not allowed here. We protect the butterflies in this park so that everyone can enjoy their beauty. As soon as the ranger said that, the boy held up his jar with Arnold in it. I caught one already, he said. But I didn't hurt it. That's good, said the ranger. Thank you for telling me. Why don't you let it go now? The boy opened the jar, and Arnold flew out. Let's get out of here, Arnold said as soon as he was out of his jar. Up, and away, class, said Ms. Frizzle. We flew as fast as we could, and soon we reached Butterfly Land. It was good to be back, but we still had two big problems. Big problem number 1, how would we get back inside? Big problem number 2, How would we ever get to be kids again? And to think that just this morning, the only problem we had was coming up with an idea for our skit. Chapter 9. Where's Liz? Asked Carlos. She got us out of Butterfly Land. Maybe she can get us back in. We looked around for Liz, but we didn't see her anywhere. But we did see our bus parked outside. The lights were flashing on and off. I think the bus is signaling us, said Wanda. As we got closer to the bus, we saw that the door was open and Liz was at the controls. On the floor next to her were our field guides piled up in a neat stack. And on top of the stack Mazid's Frizzle's great-grandmother things there. Or maybe Liz. It didn't seem possible, but you never know. If only we could open Magic Matilda's locket, said Keisha. It turned us into butterflies. Maybe it could turn us back into kids. How did you open the locket, Miss Frizzle? I asked. I don't know, Phoebe, said the Frizz. But if we all think very hard, I'm sure we'll come up with the answer. Turn on those butterfly brains. All I remember, said Carlos, is that Peter was talking about butterfly jewelry. And I mentioned Miss Frizzle's locket, said Keisha. Then Miss Frizzle asked Peter if he wanted to see it, and she lifted it up to show him, Tim remembered. And then it just opened, said Wanda. That gave me an idea. Wait a minute, I said. Miss Frizzle said something before the locket opened. I remember, because we all laughed. That's right, said Da. Do you remember what you said, Miss Frizzle? Maybe those were magic words that opened the locket. I think I meant to say the word butterfly, but by mistake I said Flutterby. As soon as she said it, the locket snapped opened. It was filled with powder again, but this time the powder was green. Teal bet that powder will turn us back into kids, said Ralphie. We fluttered around the open locket and beat our wings up and down as hard as we could to blow the powder out. It worked! Before we knew it, we were our old selves. Our butterfly battle had been exciting, but I have to admit I was glad to be a kid again. Ms. Frizzle was back in the driver's seat. Liz pushed some buttons and turned some knobs, and our bus turned back into a butterfly. I was glad it was the bus and not us. We waved goodbye to Butterfly Land and finally headed for home. When we got back to school, everything was the same except for one very important thing. Now we had plenty of ideas for our skit. We can just act out what happened on our field trip, said Ralphie. No one will believe it, but they'll like it anyway, said Tim. Miss Frizzle, can we use your locket for our skit? I asked. The Frizz smiled as she handed us some string and some modeling clay. Maybe it would be better if you made a pretend locket for the skit, she said. A letter from Miss Frizzle planting a butterfly garden. Dear readers, because there are now so many cities and suburbs where there used to be farmland, fields, and marshes, many butterflies are losing their homes. To help save these beautiful insects, you can plant a special garden for butterflies. Your first step is to do some research. Find out what kinds of butterflies live around your area. Then find out which kinds of plants those butterflies are attracted to when they are caterpillars. A good field guide to butterflies will give you the information you need. After you've done your research, your next step is to choose a spot for your garden. It should get plenty of sun and not too much wind. At the plant store, you can buy either seeds or seedlings, tiny baby plants that have already started to grow. Try planting patches of the same flower instead of just one or two plants in one spot. Oh, yes, and one more very important thing: no insecticides. To help you get started, here are some flowers that are easy to grow. Clover, lantana, milkweed, aster, dogbane, vetch, thistle, joe pye weed. These flowers will attract many butterflies to your beautiful garden. You can begin with just 3 or 4 kinds. Have fun, and good luck with your butterfly garden. Ms. Frizzle. P.S. If you look in your garden one day and see a caterpillar wearing a red baseball cap, please let me know.